Hello everybody, Harry here, welcome to Scrap Science. Today I would like to make some iron oxide. I don't really have a reason for doing this. I mean, maybe one day I'll do some iron chemistry or maybe experiment with some thermite, but for now that's definitely going to be a long way off. The real reason I'm doing this is because it's a very common thing to make by electrolysis. And who would I be if I didn't have a go at a simple electrolysis experiment? So to get started, what I did this morning was I walked into the garden and I found this lying on the ground. This is a piece of scrap steel. I'm not sure what it was previously used for, but it serves no purpose right now, so I thought why not try to turn it into iron oxide. We won't be turning this whole thing into iron oxide, obviously. That would be a lot of work, but we'll turn a bit of it at least into enough iron oxide to last me a very long time. Now, the electrolytic method of turning this into iron oxide is basically to just use it as an anode in an electrolytic cell. The oxidizing potential will oxidize the iron into iron hydroxides or something of the sort, and then we can heat up those iron hydroxides later on to turn them into iron oxide. So the setup should be pretty simple. We'll use this steel rod as an anode, the copper wire as a cathode, and slowly convert the iron in the rod into iron hydroxides. The only other thing we need, of course, is electrolyte to do the actual conducting between the electrodes. The best choice of electrolyte is distilled water with some sodium chloride in it. Acidic electrolytes tend to not be very good because they end up electroplating iron instead of oxidizing it on the anode exclusively. And then basic electrolytes tend to either passivate the iron surface or result in the oxidation of water instead of the oxidation of iron. So neutral electrolytes, sodium chloride is the best one because it's simply the cheapest. Normally sodium chloride isn't a very inert electrolyte, but seeing as the oxidation of iron is easier than the oxidation of chloride ions, it's actually effectively inert under these conditions. So to get us going straight away, I've got 200 grams of sodium chloride in the beaker there, and all I'm going to do is just put in about a litre of water, distilled water, into the cell to dissolve that all up. That should do. And then really there's no need to wait until everything dissolves. What we can just do is directly put our electrodes into the solution, copper cathode and the steel anode, and I'll make the electrical connections and get everything ready. On that note, if you're interested in learning more about the fundamentals of chemical reactions or the physics behind the kind of circuit I've set up here, I'd like to recommend brilliant.org, the sponsor of this video. One of the most common questions I get on this channel is, how can I learn the basics or learn more about the circuits and reactions you talk about? And I'll admit, I can't teach you the fundamentals through a YouTube video alone. That's where Brilliant comes in. The best way to learn about maths and science is interactively, and Brilliant provides exactly this type of hands-on approach. With thousands of lessons on maths, physics, and even computer science, it's an excellent place to build up your skills or keep them sharp, no matter your level of knowledge. Being a chemist myself, I couldn't resist trying out Brilliant's chemistry course. I've also taken some of their lessons on calculus too. I've now spent a few hours working through the content, and I'm really enjoying the practical approach to explaining difficult concepts and the concise, bite-sized manner of the material. If you'd like to start learning more about the world around you and experience all that Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days, you can visit brilliant.org/scrapscience, which I've also put down in the description. The first 200 people to click the link will get a full 20% off their annual premium subscription with Brilliant. And there, with everything connected up correctly, positive lead to the anode, the steel rod, and negative lead to the copper cathode. If we turn up the voltage, we should see current start flowing and electrolysis happening. And of course, it's going to be a very slow process, but if we leave this going for maybe a few days, we should see a whole bunch of iron hydroxides start to flake off the anode. The cathode is of course bubbling with a whole bunch of hydrogen gas as per the reduction of water, and it's also generating the hydroxide ions that will go on to react with the iron from the anode. I'm going to give this a bit of a stir with the anode, and you can really start to see the greenish yellow colour that comes about with a little bit of iron in solution. A few minutes in and you can see we're already generating a fair bit of precipitate, which seems to be floating now on the top of the cell, and we're able to push a whole bunch more current through the cell at a lower voltage. There's really not all that much else left to say. This thing will just continue running for the next few days as it is, continually generating oxidized iron, and I'll continue running it until I think it's time to stop. "24 hours since we started running current through this cell. You can see everything is going pretty much exactly as expected. We have a whole bunch of iron hydroxides precipitating out at the bottom of the cell. That's all that blue kind of brown coloration you can see settling at the bottom. The iron anode is becoming significantly corroded in there. I think, give this a bit of a stir and then continue running this cell for a few more days. I've been running it at 1 amp so far through the entire 24 hours that we've had it running, and I think I'm going to increase that to 2 amps because this is running really nicely. Woohoo! That's corroded. And there we have it, all stirred up once again. The electrodes are back in the cell, and we've set the current to approximately 2 amps. You can see we can run 2 amps through the cell at a nice low voltage now that everything has kind of settled, all of the sodium chloride has dissolved and all of the electrodes are exposed. So that's great. I'm going to leave this going, as I said, for a few days. Maybe I'll even turn up the current a little bit further to get a bit more charge flowing through the cell. But with that, I'm happy to continue running the cell as it is, and you, the viewer, can skip forward in time to maybe when something a little bit more interesting happens. 4 days in now to running the cell. The story so far is for 24 hours, initially we had it running at 1 amp, and then for another 24 hours we had it running at 2 amps, and now for a further 50 hours or so, we've had it running at 3 amps. So with a bit of calculation, we find that the total amount of charge that we've put through the cell in this entire run is approximately 8.3 Faradays. A Faraday is, of course, just a mole of electrons. And doing some more calculations, that tells us that the total amount of iron oxide that we should get at the end of this at 100% efficiency should be around 330 grams, which I think is perfectly good enough for any purposes that I might want iron oxide for. So I'm calling it now. I'm going to turn off the cell and I'm going to take the electrodes out, pull it all apart and process all of the iron hydroxides that we've just made. First of all, the cathode should look pretty okay after the electrolysis because it's not under oxidizing conditions. You can see it's blackened a little bit, but the copper wire that we've used there really isn't damaged, so that's good. Then of course, the iron anode should be covered in a whole bunch of iron hydroxides and things like that. Bunch of corrosion. After a bit of a clean as well, you can see what the anode looks like. It's greatly corroded throughout the whole section that was submerged in the electrolyte. We didn't quite dissolve all the way through it, but we dissolved a fair bit of it, and that's all I really wanted from the start, so that's good too. Anyway, the next step, of course, is filtering and washing all of these iron hydroxides, which is easier said than done. Quite some time later, I have extracted all of the solid material from our original electrolysis cell. What I then did was filtered it and washed it 3 or 4 times with distilled water. And you can see we now have this goopy brown iron hydroxide material, some of the least visually appealing chemistry I've done, I think. And the next step in our generation of iron oxide is to simply heat this stuff up to remove all of the water and then convert the iron hydroxides into iron oxides by further removal of water. Now, we could do this on the hot plate. It would take quite a while though, because we do have quite a bit of material in this beaker. So instead, because I have one, I'm going to use my furnace. As you can see, I've got all of the material in the crucible there, and it is quite quickly heating up, drying out, and dehydrating. There's really not much to it. I'm just going to let this do its thing until all of the material in there is converted into iron oxide. Look, I think we're nearly there, and I'd love to show you what's happening inside the crucible, but it doesn't make for very interesting footage, I don't think, so we're going to skip ahead to the point where this is all done. Now that the heating process is complete and everything has cooled down, I've got the crucible full of our iron oxide here, and we should be able to pour it out and get a look at our material. And yeah, there we go. That is our iron oxide yield for this process. It looks very much like iron oxide, the exact color that I would expect of something like this, and maybe with a little bit of crushing up of the big chunks, this would be a nice fine powder. I went ahead and weighed it, and it came out to be approximately 170 grams, so we're a little bit shy of the theoretical 220 grams of iron oxide that we should get. Most of that is probably due to losses from like transferring and filtering and things like that. I didn't make too much of an effort to collect absolutely everything from all of those steps. And even so, we're approaching an 80% Faradaic efficiency for the process, which I think is pretty good. But with that all said, that's that for the experiment. We were able to turn this steel rod, or part of it anyway, into some very nice iron oxide for use in chemistry or thermite. In chemistry, of course, we can just dissolve this up with acid to form iron salts, and for thermite, of course, it's ready to go as iron powder. Maybe a little bit of crushing up the big chunks would do some good. But for this video, that's the end of the road. I had fun doing this. I hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you later.